Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review, where today I review the third Dalek story to be made for classic Doctor Who, The Chase, originally broadcast on BBC One of May 1965. Just in case you don't know the plot, the first Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Vicky have discovered that a group of Daleks have their own space and time machine, with orders to pursue the Tardis crew and exterminate. For me, The Chase kind of gives this end of trilogy Dalek story feel. So for the Daleks, we see meet the Daleks on Skaro, and then for the sequel, we're having this invasion on Earth, and then for the Chase, we're kind of having a confrontation through various planets and time periods on Earth, which I kind of enjoy. Really, it's a clever idea of a story to sort of build up on. And for parts 1 and 2 of the Chase, it kind of has that Dalek feel. And where they're quite more aggressive, killing, when they go to the planet Iridius and killing the Iridians. And I really love the scene at the end of part 1 with the Dalek coming out of the sand dune, very similar to when the Dalek comes out of the water in Dalek's Invasion of Earth. And then from parts 3 onwards, it's just a madcap adventure. So for this review, I just want to talk about in a bit more detail some of the highlights of the adventures, what's going on in the Chase. Starting off with the Mare Celeste, and I like the idea or the theory that the Daleks caused the crew of the Mare Celeste, the sort of the reasoning by the disappearance when the ship arrived. A bit kind of like Earthshock and the whole sort of concept of why the dinosaurs got wiped out and how the Ice Age started. But there were some really weird, dark moments in that when all the crew are going overboard. We even have a woman and baby jumping overboard. That's a bit weird to sort of add. And then at the end, having this Dalek kind of committing suicide and just sort of just jumping overboard as well. I don't know if it just kind of like lost its footing. I don't know. It's just very odd, very odd scene to have in this whole sort of story. But yeah, they're having that weird sort of dark elements, but kind of being treated as a comedy. Then for part 4, we pretty much have the Daleks versus Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. And going back and rewatching this episode, particularly this episode, I can't quite fathom out what the actual result was, because the Doctor felt like it was as if they were out of time and space themselves and in some kind of psychedelic dream sequence, or like in someone's imagination, apparently. But then it cuts away and it was all set in a fun fair. And I don't know, because the Daleks are trying to exterminate Dracula and Frankenstein's monsters, and they're just repelling their firepower. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments below whether you think it was like a full-on fun fair or it was kind of a mixture of both with the psychological dreams thing going off. And if it wasn't madcap enough, we have this scenario where the Daleks create their own robotic doctor, a Robo Doctor, if you like. And I love I think it was the end of part 4, maybe, we have the cliffhanger of, oh my gosh, they've got a doppelganger doctor. And I love the Dalek saying, absolute paramount success. It's absolutely distinguishable from the Doctor. You can hardly tell this is the real Doctor, and clearly you can tell it's someone else. I'm assuming it was like the stunt double for William Hartnell, which now, obviously back in the 60s, small TVs, not very high definition, and you could probably get away at those times that it wasn't actually William Hartnell. But obviously now, with even more high definition, it just really sort of like sticks out that it clearly isn't William Hartnell. And I just kind of don't get the reasoning why they did that. I don't know whether it was because of William Hartnell, trying to give him more sort of time to rest up. So they kind of brought him in to sort of do those kind of lines. But really, I understand in the sort of fight scene between the Robo Doctor and the first Doctor having that sort of Kane's sword fight sort of thing, that they had to use a stunt double to sort of mimic those scenes. But yeah, I I don't get the Robo Doctor or the guy being the Robo Doctor. To be fair, he kind of does have distinguished looks that, like I said, can get away with looking at William Hartnell. So I would have sort of played on that a little bit more. I would have gone like it's an exact replica. It's kind of like, from a kind of distance, a more sort of evilish Doctor. That's what I would have gone for. I want to talk about the Daleks themselves in this story because Terry Nation, who wrote The Chase, has definitely kind of got the basic sort of fundamental evilness of the Daleks that we have seen in the previous stories, but he's kind of got another eye of broadening the Daleks for a possible spin-off someday. So you're kind of having this, I wouldn't want to say mismatch, but definitely this mixture of evilness, especially like I said in parts 1 and 2, and then it goes into kind of full-on comedy mode with the Daleks because the voices are a little bit sort of different. Still voiced by David Graham and Peter Hawkins, who do a fantastic job for the Daleks. I love the different sort of high pitch and low pitch tones that they choreograph together. But there's just some really weird sort of moments in it that you would just not see now in modern Doctor Who. So there was a Dalek that was calculating some coordinates, and he's pretty much just going 1 2 carry the 4 and things like that you just what. And then I love where there was 2 Daleks talking to each other, and one was relaying these orders and the Dalek was going, yes, then we will do this, yes, and then we will do this, yes, well, go see to it. It's like, oh, all right, yep, I'll go do that. So I love that kind of extra elements for the Daleks. It is a bit sort of head scratcher, compare it to modern Daleks now. It definitely works more as a scarier one, but it's kind of like I appreciate the experimental sort of moments in the chase of how far we can push the Daleks in terms of emotional range. Again, Terry Nation having one eye on a potential spin-off for the Daleks is we also are introduced to the Mechanoids from the planet Mechanus. And I really like the design of the Mechanoids. These huge robots with the sort of claw arms and then the flamethrowers. I thought it was a really good design. And I did like the end sequence with the Daleks versus the Mechanoids. I thought that was quite good. Kind of went maybe a little bit over the top with the flashes and bangs type of thing. I imagine if it was colorized, it would look a little bit too cartoony. But for black and white, it does work quite well. Also liked, if you haven't heard the audio adventure, the Juggernauts, how they kind of swing back with the sort of origins of the Mechanoids. It's a really good listen if you're a fan of the Mechanoids. I would love to see them back in modern Doctor Who one day. Moving on to the TARDIS crew, and I'll start off with Vicky, played by Maureen O'Brien. Vicky kind of came into Doctor Who in a couple of stories previous to the chase, and yeah, Maureen is kind of bringing the character into her own. Definitely kind of having it's kind of like Susan 2.0, but probably a little bit of an older character, rather, compared to sort of Susan being a teenager and going into a young woman, where this one's kind of more sort of younger woman, sort of starting her own journey. And yeah, I quite like Vicky. I think she's quite an underrated companion. She works really well with the First Doctor and William Hartnell, and kind of love that relationship that they have. Kind of like it's the grandfatherly figure, but not being a biological grandfather. The main feature towards the end of the chase, though, is the departure of original companions Ian and Barbara. And obviously, we had Susan depart in Daleks Invasion Earth, and then another sort of, big moment for, in Dalek sort of history in terms of the stories that the Daleks are involved with. We have another companion departure, this time 2 companions. And yeah, I think it was probably the right time to go, really, for these characters. I think they've done everything that they could with these characters in terms of the adventures that they have gone through, and everything that they've gone through together with the First Doctor. And I really love the scene where they're arguing with the First Doctor. You know, this is the chance that they have to finally get back home, and the Doctor thinks that it's the sheer suicide to do that. With the method that they're going, keeping it kind of spoilerish free, but agreeing to sort of let them go, you know. And again, it's bringing in Maureen O'Brien, bringing in Vicky, and the Doctor being very sort of stubborn and asking Vicky, "Do you want to go too?" And it's like, "What for? You know, I want to be here with you." So again, having that sort of granddaughter, grandfather dynamics in there. But yeah, it was a nice, although quick, departure for Ian Barber. I think it was a good sort of departure for these original companions. And props to William Hartnell for his contribution to that scene and his performance throughout this story. You know, he brought in the serious grumpiness, grandfather-like Doctor that we all know and love, but also having those comedy, whimsical moments as well, with a little gleam in his eye. You know, when we talk about William Hartnell, we all talk, you know, quite a lot are mentioned about him fluffing up his lines. But in this story, he really just matches the tonal shifts with the serious and the comedy, and just went with it. And yeah, is definitely a highlight for the chase. And let's not forget Peter Purvis as the incoming new companion, Stephen Taylor, who we see on the planet Mechanus. But he was also in an earlier episode of the chase as this sightseer from Southern America. And yeah, he does. He's a really good performer, actually, Peter Purvis. And yeah, again, an underrated companion in the William Hartnell era. I do like his the weird character that he played on top of the Empire State Building, confronting the Daleks. Love that bit where he just goes, "He just left," and mimicking the Daleks' voices. Really like that scene. And yeah, it was definitely a right choice to keep on as a future companion for the First Doctor. As I mentioned in my review, Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD, The Chase would have been perhaps the third Dalek movie to transfer from the TV onto the big screen, had Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD been a financial success. And I really would have loved to have seen that on the big screen with Peter Cushing returning as Doctor Who. And yeah, again, I would have seen, I could imagine this story on the big screen, probably just cut out some of the, you know, made it a bit more streamlined, with probably would have taken out the elements maybe from the Mary Celeste and the Dracula Frankenstein stuff, although that would have been a nice wink and nod to Peter Cushing, to be fair. And probably the scenes with the time and space visualizer as well, I don't think that would have been included. Going back to BritBox as well, I watched that on BritBox. Do check it out on BritBox if you haven't got it, because Doctor Who in HD looks great, especially the 60s Doctor Who, and this story looked really good in HD. But yeah, was quite surprised that they had to cut out the scene with the Beatles using the stock footage from Top of the Pops on BBC One. So clearly there's some kind of licensing issues using the Beatles likeness, even though it was recorded by the BBC. Found that a little bit bizarre that was edited out, but thankfully you can watch that on DVD at your own pleasure. I'm going to give The Chase a Tardis rating of 6.5 out of 10. Is this the best Dalek story from Doctor Who? Perhaps not, but it does have a lot of fun elements and quite a lot of highlights for this story for me. And a big shopping list to sort of achieve on such a low budget. You know, we've got to include a futuristic world like Mechanus and an alien world like Iridius, along with the Iridians. And then we've got to sort of incorporate the look and feel of the Empire State Building and the Mare Celeste, and then having this psychedelic adventure like, you know, when the Daleks take on Frankenstein's monster and Dracula. We've got a robot version of the Doctor. And then we've got to add in the elements of our main characters going through this madcap time and space adventure with two of our, well-loved companions departing at the end of the story. It's not an easy feat to put in, but they on a low budget, I think they really achieved, or perhaps overachieve, in terms of style and quality for this story. I'd say if you are a growing Doctor Who fan, this is a story that you do need to check out at some point. But if you are especially a massive fan of the Daleks, then yeah, definitely check out this story. You're not seeing the Daleks in their maniacal evil glory, as it were, but showing the Daleks in a different light in terms of the comedy and the comedic characteristics. It's definitely one to explore. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts to The Chase, and if this were to have been made as a third 60s Doctor Who movie, which scenes would you cut out and which scenes would you have made more serious, or would you have added more comedy into that movie? Next time on Timey Wimey Review, it will be my review of the 4th Doctor story, Underworld. But until then, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the cloister bell for more notifications, and come say hi on my Twitter page at ReviewTimey. But as the good doctor once said, silly old fusspots.